All right, to get us in perspective, Dr. Sharon Austin is joining us on this broadcast, Professor of Political Science at the University of Florida, and is joining us live from Gainesville, Florida. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, it seems like arguably the most powerful man is joining hands with the richest man of the world. Your thoughts?
I think so. I think that Donald Trump is going to be very loyal to the people who supported him and who endorsed him during his campaign.
Right. And what kind of an implication can we see of that happening on the policy space?
Well, I think that in this sense, President-elect Trump is very critical of the media, and he's had several problems in the past, but now on X, I'm sure he now uses Truth Social, but now I'm sure he'll start to use X more, and that might even encourage other people to influence X, to use X. And I think that Elon Musk is going to be his advisor, and he is possibly even going to be appointed to a really important position in his administration. And so I think that he is definitely going to show his loyalty, and I think both men will benefit from it.
Sharon Austin, you're talking to Eric. Are you surprised with these elections?
I am surprised because I was on your show a few days ago and I was asked what I thought, and I really did think Kamala Harris would win, but I think a lot of people are waking up to the news now that she wasn't successful. She was defeated. I'm surprised at the overall result, and I'm also surprised as I began to see more of the demographics of who voted for her. I'm surprised at some of those results as well.
Sharon, just to talk about Elon Musk again, Trump calls him a superstar, and we will see if he at all will be in his cabinet in the future. Tell us what you think about his relationship with Elon Musk and some of these people that he's been able to quote during his campaign.
I think his relationship with Elon Musk opens him up to relationships with other really, really wealthy individuals, because Kamala Harris had raised more funds. And at one time, she was outraising him by large numbers just through small donations of people giving donations of between $5 to $20. And Elon Musk was able to, of course, benefit him financially, but also he is going to be able to introduce Donald Trump to other really wealthy people. Trump himself already has many connections, but I think they're going to be expanded under Elon Musk. The question is going to be, if he is nominated to a position in the Trump administration, what position will that be, and what will he be responsible for? Because I remember even when he was president before, Dr. Ben Carson was over the housing and urban development, and he had a career as a neurosurgeon, and he knew nothing about housing and urban development, and Donald Trump received a lot of criticism for that. So Elon Musk might be in a position such as that, in which he might be doing something that most Americans believe that he has absolutely no experience with, but that remains to be seen.
Sharon, let's talk about what Trump did in his victory speech, because he surprised many. He sounded like a very changed man. He's talking about unity, he's talking about democracy, he's talking about freedom in the United States. Do you feel that Donald Trump has changed, or we are going to see a different Donald Trump as president?
That remains to be seen. I think that he's responding to a lot of the criticism he received, not only from Kamala Harris, but also even from the Obamas and from others who campaigned for her, when they pitched her campaign as an assault on democracy, and they let it be known that he had ties to Project 2025 and that he was an extremist. And I think he's trying to get through the point that he's not an extremist, and that he's not going to be against democracy. But that remains to be seen, because a lot of people remember not too long ago the things that he was doing when he was president before. So we can only hope that this time it'll be different. And also because some of the people who supported him are people of color, especially men of color. And we could only hope that he will follow his word and will do things to promote democracy and fairness. But it remains to be seen.
Yeah, and just taking that point a little further, as you correctly mentioned, a lot of blacks, Asians, Hispanics have actually come through for Donald Trump, a lot of them being men. Our assessment seems like if you don't have your bread and butter sorted, which is the economy, inflation and cost of living, the other issues don't really matter.
Right. I think so. But I think that he got his message across, especially when it came to the economy. An exit poll showed that people who voted yesterday were very concerned about inflation and the economy, and they really felt that he was the better candidate to address those issues. And I think many of those men of color were concerned with those issues. And even when you think about all of the baggage that Donald Trump brings and all the criticism that he has received, the fact that he's a convicted felon and those types of things, I think a lot of people sort of were willing to sort of look away from that and not really consider that. They were more concerned with their interests and their families' interest and the economy. And many of them believed that they were better off when Trump was president. And I think that is what influenced them to vote for him.
Yes, and while we talk about what Donald Trump did right, and of course he did something right because as you correctly mentioned, it resonated with the voters, we also have to talk about what Kamala Harris did wrong. Because the issues around inflation and the economy and the cost of living were out in the open. Kamala Harris was well aware of it. She was trying to address it. Her critics would say that her policies weren't exactly targeted to it, or she at least herself couldn't formulate it well. But is that where Kamala Harris kind of lagged behind?
I think so. I think she wasn't able to really distance herself from the Biden administration.
Yes.
And I was watching the results come in, and I noticed that in the states that she lost, that she was expected to win, especially those blue wall states, the perception of voters was that Biden was not successful. He had a very low approval rating. And the idea was that she was his vice president. So basically, she was his right-hand person. And if he was unsuccessful, that meant that she was unsuccessful too. And toward the latter part of her campaign, she tried to distance herself from that and talk about her own policies. But then people were saying that they were not specific enough. So I think that was the biggest challenge for her, besides the fact that she didn't have very much time to even put the campaign together. I think she did remarkably well considering all the constraints that she faced. But nevertheless, she wasn't able to prove that she would be more effective on the economy and also to distance herself from the Biden administration and some of its more controversial policies.
Sharon, Trump is the first president in U.S. history to return to the White House after 1862, I believe, and he's promising change. Do you see that change coming in the next 4 years?
I see that change coming. He's the first president since former President Grover Cleveland, as you mentioned, that was many, many years ago, to ever be able to serve a second term and not serve them consecutively. And I see change coming, but it all depends on what type of change he's bringing. Because when he made the comment about wanting to protect women, whether they like it or not, that is something that, that really is a frightening prospect for many women, especially when it comes to issues like reproductive rights. But I think he's saying that change is coming, and let's just hope that he focuses more on economic change and that he doesn't bring the same level of divisiveness that he brought before. But we can only hope.
Right. Ms. Austin, before I let you go, it was me who you were speaking to a couple of days back, and I'd asked you what would be a message you would put out to the candidates if they would be listening, and you had very interestingly told me that you would want less divisiveness, you would want a more cordial relationship between the two candidates, not to throw barbs as we saw in this campaign trail, some of them being extremely harsh. Now that Donald J. Trump is the 47th president of the United States and keeping his record in mind, are you optimistic?
Am I optimistic? I can't honestly say that I am because of the assault on democracy and all of the chaos that he brought before. I am relieved that we're not going to have to deal with another insurrection because if he had lost, he would have said he was cheated. And now I think Kamala Harris is now going to show us what it's like to be gracious as a person who didn't win. And I'm sure she's going to come out today or sometime this week to talk about, to concede. That's not something Donald Trump ever would have done. So am I optimistic? I have to answer that with the word no. But I am, only going to hope that he will follow the lead and that he will do the things that he said he would do in his speech just a few hours ago.
All right, Ms. Austin, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast and getting us your insights. Good to speak to you.
Thank you for having me.